Hey there folks, welcome to another edition of Ketchum Caro TV, brought to you by Ketchum Caro Bait Company. Hey, today I want to try something new and give you guys my fishing report via video. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the officers for running a smooth event. This is the club's 28th year putting on the State Classic. Originally it was put on by Jimmy Reese and it was called the Jimmy Reese Invitational. And when Jim went pro, we changed it to the Invitational, and as of a few years ago, we changed it to the State Classic. It's a 2-day event up in Northern California at Clear Lake, and it's always been in October. This year, the officers decided to move it to September so we can avoid the rain, and what a great idea. The weather was beautiful. I couldn't have asked for better conditions. So I'd like to let you guys know what I did and what it took for me to win the tournament by ounces. I went up Friday morning before the tournament and I was on the water at 4:45. I pre-fished 6 different areas starting from south, working my way north. And after my day of Friday, I decided on a spot up north, and I decided on the spot due to the bait fish I found there. I found more bait in one area than I did any of the other areas, and so I think it was a good choice. So I went fishing Saturday morning, and I went out on some docks, and while fishing in the low light conditions, I noticed some swirls on the bank, and I looked and I didn't see any grebes or birds swimming around, and sure enough, boom, I saw another swirl, and it was obvious that the bass had some bait corralled up on the bank. So I went to the bank after about fishing for about 45 minutes, and sure enough saw a swirl, threw my blade over, and boom, got my first keeper. Kept my eyes open while fan casting the blade in the shallows, saw another swirl, threw my little creeper bait, All-American Trash Fish, 4-inch, into the swirl. Boom, another keeper, number 2. Shortly after that, the sun came up, the swirl stopped happening, so I went out to the docks. I had no weeds to mention around me, so there was only one place for those bass to go, and it was the shade of the docks. I was throwing my blade and throwing an LV and throwing my new Mr. Winters Ketchum Caro bait and throwing the trash fish underneath the shade, and I got my 3rd fish on my Mr. Winters, maybe a 3-pounder. All along, boats are coming and going through my docks. I've had a stretch of about 15 docks that I like to fish in this one location, and I was sharing it with a lot of pre-fishermen from the FLW. Juan Bass tournament was going on, amongst other little club tournaments. So there was a lot of traffic in my area, but I think I only saw a couple boats actually catch fish. They pretty much come through real fast, throw some reaction, and then they go. Caught my 4th keeper Saturday at about, I'd say 10 o'clock. It was on a trash fish underneath a dock, shade of a dock. I didn't have any coal buoys. I couldn't use my balance beam, so coaling was all done by hand. Our limit's 4 fish, so kept on fishing and throwing an array of baits. I really didn't have the pattern going yet, and by about, I'd say 12, I caught another fish and cold on the All-American Trash Fish. So I stuck with that bait a little bit more, and boom, I caught another fish. I ended up with 7 fish on Saturday. I ended up weighing in 14 pounds. I think that put me in about 15th place or so. First place was leading it with 19 pounds. Second and third were 18 pounds. I knew it would be tough to beat those guys, so I just figured, I'll go for a top 10 if I can. And so day number 2 on Sunday, I went right out. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I went right to the bank. Sure enough, the fish were on the bank again in the low light conditions. I threw the blade and the trash fish and picked up a limit in no time at all. As soon as the sun came up, went out to the docks. I threw some of my baits a little bit, the Ketchum Caro baits, but had no luck with them. So I stuck with the All-American Trash Fish, the 4-inch, the albino AU, or whatever they call it. And I'd catch a fish, I'd go through my 15 docks, I'd catch a fish on every run, and these docks were getting hammered by boats. But what I did notice is they were fishing fast, and they weren't catching anything. Not on the docks that I was fishing. my ticket was to cast all the way up under the shade, let it sink to the bottom, and reel it slow. Again, I was throwing the 4-inch. I was using a 4-aught Owner's Beast weighted hook. I believe it's an 1/8 ounce weight, and on 10-pound fluorocarbon on a bait cast rod. And by 11 o'clock, I realized I could skip these things, so I put that little 4-inch trash fish on my spinning rod, and I could skip it right up underneath those docks and get all the way across the shade, let it sink to the bottom, and then reel it slow. And just stuck with that pattern, and I'd get a fish about every 20 minutes, and I coaled, I think, 3 times on Sunday. And again, it was hard to coal. I had no coaling buoys, so I just kind of had to feel the fish, and I didn't like opening that live well much, you know. Never do on a tournament day. But I caught, I think, 14 or 15 fish on Sunday, and I weighed in 17.11, and it was good enough for first place, just a few ounces over second. And you know, I really think it was the presentation of that 4-inch trash fish that was the ticket to my success at Clear Lake. Again, too, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. We had 48 guys. This is the 28th. The weather was beautiful. The weigh-in was as smooth as could be. Thank you, Andrew and Scott, for taking care of that, and the release boat, and for the guys that took care of their fish. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, Bucks Bags, for donating a kick boat for our raffle. Bucks Bags, the majority of our members have Bucks Bags now, and they're a great boat. It was my Bucks Bag that maneuvered me through those docks and helped me catch them fish. And Persuader Bait Company, Cliff at Persuader every year sends us a big box of raffle goodies. It was my Persuader blade that helped catch some of my morning fish. Big Hammer Swim Baits, Pete at Big Hammer, thank you very much. Everybody loves to get their swim baits, and they're always great for catching some fish. Jill and Rich at Rejuvenate, thank you very much. If it wasn't for Rejuvenate, I don't think those fish I had would be as lively as they were at the end of the day, as well as everybody else's fish. And Mend It, Will at Mend It. Without Mend It, some of these plastic baits that we're using, our trash fish, our Big Hammer baits, they just wouldn't last as long if we didn't have something to glue them back together. So thank you very much. And Matt for getting us that connection with Camelback. I have a Camelback for mountain biking. Those things aren't cheap. Very useful, especially when you're mountain biking. Probably can use them for kickboating too on a hot day. And the Outdoor Pro Shop, Ken and the guys down there for kicking back a lot. Every year they always give us a lot of good raffle product. And Ed at Tackle It, and Bob Higgins at Limit Out, and Troy and Dave at Clear Lake Tackle. Hey, thanks again. And State Park for letting us have our barbecue up there in the group campground. I can't say enough. It's the 28th year doing this show. Every year there's some new guys, and every year there's the old guys. And it was good to see Bill out there again. We haven't seen Bill Sweat with us for a while. And for all the new guys, hey, thanks for coming out. And once again, God, man, that event was great. And for the representation from Bass and Tubes, this time you guys had a lot of guys there, man, and we appreciate it. It's always great to see you guys fishing with us. And, I look forward to many more classics to come. I won it one other time back in 2000. And this year here, just a little bit sweeter than 2000. Anyway, hey, that was it. I ended up weighing in a total of 31 pounds for 8 fish and some change. And man, I didn't want to get off the water. It just feels good every time you just slow reeling that trash fish, and boom, you get the bite. It's a great feeling. Anyway, here's some of the baits I used. Here's my Mr. Winters. It's the all-new Mr. Winters lipless all-wood monster crankbait. It's a silent version with no rattles in it. Been sticking some pigs on that bait. They got one of my fish on Saturday. This was my morning fan casting bait right there. It's my Persuader blade. It's just small little willow leaves. I think match that Silverside bait, and the fish just chew it up. But this was the killer right here. This is the bait. It's the All-American Trash Fish in a 4-inch. This is just the plain IU. It's not the albino IU that I used, but I did throw this and catch some fish also on it. I use a 4-aught owner wide gap hook. It's a little wider than the Gami, so when the fish comes down on it, it gives a little more hook to penetrate there. Very tough, durable bait. I caught probably 10 fish on each bait, and I probably could have caught more, but I just thought I'd put a fresh one on. That was the ticket for me, and I guarantee you throw some of these baits wherever you're at, and you're going to catch some fish. Hey man, so till next time, this is Rich Caro from Catch 'em Caro TV. Hope to see you on the water. Get a float tube, get a kick boat, make sure it's a Bucks bag, and we'll see you soon. All right, take care.